Hey guys, thanks for joining us. I'm Thomas, a private client advisor here at Chrono24 in beautiful New York City. And today we are talking about my tips for watch collecting. Now, this is not a definitive list by any means. There is no 10 commandments for watch collecting. These are just my top thoughts as someone who helps people buy watches all day, every day, and as someone who's made a lot of mistakes over the years. Now, one announcement before we get started, we are doing a $10,000 giveaway. Details for that are in the description below, and 10 G's certainly helps when you're collecting watches. Now, while we're on the subject of watch collecting, let's do a little wrist check. Today, I have a 1990s Swatch Weightless Edition by the artist Richard McGuire. Cool story here, Richard McGuire was is an illustrator for the New York Times, the New Yorkers, other major publications. He was also a bassist for a punk band, and one of his bass lines ended up in a Grandmaster Flash song called White Lines. Super cool, not something that you would expect for a little internet find under $50. It's not a status piece, it's not an investment piece or anything like that. It just makes me happy every time I look at it. Let's start at the top. Rule number one is buy from a trusted source. It's really easy to buy a good watch if you're buying it from good people, and this helps inspire confidence throughout the entire process, especially if you're purchasing online. Now, to plug the people who are paying for this video, Chrono24 has ratings and reviews for every dealer on our site. We have fantastic dealers from all over the world. You can see how many sales they've done with us, how those sales have gone, and we have a whole team set up. If you have any questions beyond that, you can reach out to the seller, ask any questions, just to make sure that you're confident before you put any money down. This is especially true if you're looking for vintage watches, something a little more niche, or something high-end. With those, you want to make sure that all the details are correct, especially because watches are just such complicated, fragile, sometimes old things. You want to make sure that you're very happy, very confident before you push any buttons. Rule number two is to ask questions, both about the watch and about what you want in the watch. That way you know that you're buying a good piece and you're actually going to want to keep it, you're actually going to want to wear it. Some examples of questions you could ask to a potential dealer, for example, once you found a good one, is about condition, how many links it has, if there's any service history. For new watches, this is not super necessary because it's pretty fresh out of the factory, but otherwise for vintage pieces, for pre-owned pieces, if you do have any concerns, it's good to get those answered beforehand before you put any money down. Now, the other side of this is asking yourself questions, and that's to make sure that this is indeed the watch that you want to pull the trigger on. Now, if you're like me, you might be pretty indecisive about what you want to do, so it's good to line up options, sit with those for a couple weeks, a month maybe, just to make sure that day in, day out, this is a watch you're going to want to wear for a long time. Now, there are fun ways to ask yourself questions about which watch you actually want. One strategy that I use personally is to set up a tournament, as silly as this sounds. Pick 4 watches, and then you match them up against each other until you find your champion. That one is at the top of the heat. It's definitely the watch you want. It's beat out all the competition. Boom, there's your answer. Key questions to ask yourself is, does this watch fit my lifestyle? Does it fit my body? Does it fit my budget? Is it a good size? Do I need it to wear it to meetings? Do I need it to wear it to kind of kick around and get groceries for a day? Does it need to do both? These are the kind of things that you want to get a really granular look at your own life, because the watch is going to be attached to your body as you're doing all these things. And if there are concerns you have about it, those are only going to amplify in those little day-to-day moments. Now, tip number 3, or for the Germans, number 3, is to have an exit plan. This came up a lot in our conversation with John Reardon, which is also on our channel. It's a good point that he brought up, which is that when you buy a watch, you do want to have in mind a way out, even if you're not thinking about selling the watch. Now, for certain watches, it's easier to have an exit plan than it is for others. Rolex, for example, there's always going to be a robust market for that. Other icon level watches, like a Speedmaster, like a Navitimer, like a Cartier Tank, there's always going to be people buying these. They're classics, and they're classics for a reason. So if you do ever want to sell it or need to sell it, there is going to be a customer pool out there who will buy it from you. Now, a few common exit plans that you might run across are investment, upgrades, and keeping for life. Investment, pretty easy. You buy a Rolex, it hopefully goes up in value over time, and you flip it for a nice little profit. Upgrade, with that, I have people who say, I want to get this Nomos now, and then a little later in my career, once I'm a little bit more established, I got my eye on this Patek Philippe, but that's 10 years down the line. The Keep for Life crowd, usually a little bit older. It's a retirement gift. It's a 70th birthday gift. This is the watch they're gonna keep and then pass down to their kids later on. All these are great examples of exit plans. It really just depends on what fits your life most and what may come at you in the future. Now let's talk about tip number 4, or if you like Roman numerals, tip number 4. And that is have a roadmap in mind for where you want your collection to go. This depends, of course, again, on who you are as a person. Some people are a one watch guy and they're just gonna have one piece to do it all. Some people wanna have a sport piece and a dress piece to kind of balance those out. Some people will do a new and a vintage piece. It really just depends on what you want and what bases you want to cover. Another way to think about this, and this is maybe at more of a higher watch enthusiast level, is to pick a theme. There are people who only buy rose gold AP. There are people who only buy design forward yellow gold 1950s Patek pieces. If you pick a theme that you're really passionate about, that you can expand over time, you're then not only finding pieces that you really love, little hidden gems, but you are also contributing to the watch collecting conversation as a whole. So you meet other collectors who've been around the game for a long time. They have their own little specialty niche. You have other people who are, in the Rolex military diver piece, the Dirty Dozen crowd. You can all come together and bring your own specialization to the table, and that's what makes it really fun. Now I say this one for last because it is the most important tip, and that's to buy what you love. In addition to being tools that tell the time, watches are there for your viewing pleasure. And if you don't like looking at it, if you don't love having it on, why'd you buy it in the first place? There are some people who just buy a watch to put it in a safe so they can sell it 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line. That's kind of a cold way to go about it, but you can make some money doing it. What I prefer, and what I think really the heart of watch collecting is instead of watch investing, is to buy what you love. So beyond what Rolex is gonna come out with next year, or what's gonna happen after 5711, and people still gonna want watches 10, 15, 20 years from now, is the Apple Watch gonna take over the world? Who cares? Buy a watch that you love, and every time you look at it, it's gonna make you happy. This is a dumb little swatch. This thing costs 50 bucks, and it's not gonna be any more valuable than that in 10, 20 years. It's probably gonna be worth zero in about 2 years. But every time I look at it, it makes me happy. It's just silly. It's got a cool story to it. It works for my life really well, and it makes other people happy too, so I can share it with other people as well. Now, buying what you love can be tough at times because there are a lot of truly excellent watches out there that you might not feel super passionate about. For example, I'm not a huge Rolex guy. I mean, they make fantastic watches, some of the best in the world, but when I see them, my eyes don't pop out of my head. I don't feel that kind of feeling. And so I'm not saying I won't change my mind one day. I'm not saying I'll never get one, but there are other brands that I just instantly love from the moment I see them. And that's where my allegiance is gonna be towards. Now, buying what you love takes a lot of self-knowledge, takes a lot of gut instinct, and it takes bravery in some cases as well, because you have to be prepared for a situation to defend your choice where you say, this is not the most obvious thing, but I love it because. And then there is a lot of power in that to know that you love it, even though no one else wants it, but at the end of the day, you made the right decision for you. So there you have it. Those are my top 5 thoughts on watch collecting. There are plenty of other people, especially in our community, that have a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience in this kind of stuff. So if there's something I missed, or there's something that really speaks to you that you think would help someone else, drop it in the comment below. This is really just a wealth of information for the community that we know and love. Thanks again for taking the time to tune in. We'll have more videos coming soon, and enjoy your watches.